Welcome to the Accomplish Impact podcast, where we explore what it truly means to accomplish in life with a focus on purpose-driven leadership. We'll be releasing new episodes every other Tuesday at 6 a.m, so be sure to subscribe and join us as we uncover the aspiring journeys of leaders who are making an impact. I'm your host, Benjamin, and today's episode we're joined by Adrian Lim, who's the core leadership of Accomplish and a serial entrepreneur and transformation consultant. Welcome to the show, Adrian.
Yes, hi. Thank you for having me on board.
Yeah, so maybe for those who perhaps are not so familiar with you, maybe you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, so, hi, I'm Adrian. I basically love adventure. Spend a lot of time doing the adventures that I really like. But in terms of, I think I play more than work. But in terms of work, what I do at the moment, I basically build teams. I build platforms and I actually basically invest in some companies.
Yeah, so you're also a serial entrepreneur and you started, well, my fingers can't count how many businesses. I think you mentioned 20 businesses over 25 years. Yeah, correct. Maybe you can share with us your entrepreneurship journey. How did you get into entrepreneurship?
Actually, it was a very interesting journey because I think I started at 19, being naive. And what I mean by being naive is that because you don't know any better, you just do it, right? I still remember I walked into a very large MNC and selling them an idea. And then I went into a POC and then I got raided because I didn't have the right license. And of course, in that sense, that's just one of the little stories that I have in business, but I've lost quite a lot, but I've learned a lot. So I think in that sense, I have, like you said, over 25 years. Yes, there are many companies. Not all of them are successful. I guess probably only a few. But I have learned a lot. I think that's actually one of the key things that I have experienced is the learning, right? I think, to have a dream, stick to it, and basically to grow it.
So why do you think this conversation is going to be valuable, even for those people who perhaps are not going to go into entrepreneurship or probably don't intend to own a business?
I think the fundamentals of it is similar. I think it's all about achieving your goals. It doesn't really matter if you're an employee or you're an entrepreneur. I've realized that they are pretty much the same. You always have someone you're accountable to. It could be your client, customer, or could be your employer, right? So what I've learned is stewardship. Is that long before I always thought it was mine. But at the end of the day, you realize that everything that we do, we are always answerable to someone. We're always serving a customer, so the customer is right. Or we are serving an employer, so the employer is right. And so in that sense, it's really, then I just ask myself, what's my purpose? And when you know your purpose, then you kind of know how to move forward.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, and you talked about you going to entrepreneurship at the age of 19, right? Maybe you can share with us your story of how you got into that entrepreneurship.
So I guess there's more of a choice and circumstance. So I didn't have a lot of choice. I left school at 18. After SPM, I went to pursue my dreams of being a sound engineer. I worked in a day as a studio assistant in a post-production studio. And then I tried to get a diploma in sound engineering at night. However, it was tough because my diploma cost was about 90% of my salary. So I had to do all sorts of side gigs to survive. And then again, after a while, I realized that my side gigs were earning me more money. So then, of course, I never looked back because I went into one business and I was not very successful. I got myself into a big hole. So in order for me to get out of the hole, obviously employment wasn't the answer. So I had to get into a bigger business so that I could cover that. And so I guess that's kind of how I started. And then I remember I had an idea. I called a friend and said, hey, could you do this? And he basically coded in 48 hours. And we took that idea and sold it to a large company. And I think we just found that it was quite easy. And so that's basically how we, or at least how I started to do business, because the framework was always the same. Idea, sell an idea, get the money, and then scale it. So we just started selling solutions. Yeah.
You started invested in, and even led many businesses to a point of success. What do you think is the biggest misconception people have about entrepreneurship?
I think the biggest misconception is really that it's easy to do, you're popular, become super rich, but it's not. And there's a lot of parts where it's actually lonely. Yeah, it's tough, and sometimes you don't even know who you can talk to. but you still got to put on a smile and keep going. And it takes a lot of effort. It takes people, timing, and even market fit. So it's a lot of many different parts that kind of need to put together. So it's sometimes a journey, and being alone and it's draining. I mean, we only see the success part of entrepreneurship.
True.
The harder part is actually where the lifestyle is. It's almost 24/7, 365. Yeah.
Yeah, there's never an end to the work because there's always something you have to do.
Yes,
Yeah, definitely.
exactly. Yes.
Perhaps was there anything that surprised you the most when you first entered entrepreneurship?
I think because I didn't know any better, it was not so much of surprise, but it was more of I just took everything every day as it came. I just never stopped learning. I coded my first application because someone said, "Hey, Adrian, do you know how to do this?" I said, "Sure." How much does it cost? 10K, and then I learned my first code. And it's like, "Oh, can you do this design?" I said, "Sure." And I picked up the computer, started learning Adobe, and next thing you know, I'm doing brochures. And then what about printing? I went to buy paper, went to machine. So I think at the end of the day, it's like I said, it's not really a surprise per se, but it was more of like every day is like an adventure. And I looked at it as an adventure.
Yeah. I think going back to even your personality, you're a person that likes adventure, right? I think I like that part about where you shared that, you just took every opportunity that you have and just made the best out of it. Yeah. What perhaps is your, I don't know, any tips that you have for people trying to be able to just learn? Is it just learning new things?
Yes, I think I always felt that entrepreneurship, or at least I didn't really think of it that way, but I just look at it as I was always in a mode of learning. I mean, of course, I didn't go to a college or uni after school, right? But so I looked at everything as an opportunity to learn. So every business that I did, obviously there's money invested. And when I looked at it from an investment perspective, I look at it as not an investment, but as like going to uni.
Yeah.
To learn, let's just say learning about advertising, learn about digital marketing or software, coding or whatever it was, right? And I looked at it as every day I could learn something. And is there a way for me to make money from this learning? And so that's basically how I kind of start seeing it from a very different lens than a typical, I need to make money. And then I always, every time when I talk to people, I always took the opportunity to ask about your industry. How do you get into it? What was something that you learned? So I pick up a lot of insights by speaking to a lot of different people. And that's basically how I learned this across the many years.
Oh, that's so good. You turn every learning opportunity into a business idea and even, in a sense, monetize that. Yeah.
Correct. I give you an example. NEX Adventure is one of the startups that I built. Of course, it died during MCO. But what happened was that a lot of my friends wanted to go adventure. I could afford to go adventure, but not all of my friends. So I said, is there a way I could bring them along? So I think I learned this from the Nepal Adventure company. They say, bring 10 people, get one free. So I said, hey, if everybody could do that, if I could start planning, I could start creating trips. I mean, I knew nothing about travel and tourism, right? So I said, but I love adventures. I plan myself. If you follow my way of adventure, I covered my costs. So in that sense, I got to go to a lot of places for free and earn a little bit of pocket money. And that became an income. And so the company made about $1 million in 3 years. And all we did was bringing friends on trips. So I guess firstly there was learning for me is this even possible? Can I bring a few friends to go and travel with me? Can they make money and fund their adventures? So that's basically our tagline then, fund your own adventures. So that's actually in a very simple idea and piloting it became a real opportunity. So yeah, I think sometimes it's just really looking at these small things and seeing, can I test it out? Will it work? Can I make money? And then after it's done, I finish my degree or diploma, or whatever you can call it. But at least it's a business.
Yeah, and then you learn something from it also.
That's correct. That's correct.
But when deciding, whether to even turn into a business or jump on the opportunity, do you have any frameworks in deciding this is the right thing to do or this is something that I should pursue?
I always look at two things. First is people, which means do I have the people to help me to do this? Do I have the right skill set? And second, is there a demand? Once I have these two, because if there is somebody willing to work at it and some willing to pay for it, then I have a business. So it doesn't matter what it is. I think as long as I've got the right people, the right skills, there is a demand, or you create a demand, you should be able to make some money. How much is really depends. That's something that you then need to then scale. But as long as these two fundamentals are there, you basically have a transaction. Yeah.
Yeah, so wow, that's very good. So having a people and demand equals a business. Yeah. What was the journey like? I mean, you say you started your first business coding something, is it?
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I did many businesses, but maybe I will just go to a story of one that I put a long time. It's something that I built, I guess, for more than 10 years. So I remembered I came out and sat in like Starbucks at that time. They got no co-working space for 3 weeks, deciding on what do I want to do. I looked at all types of business. I looked at all types of opportunities, and like what was it then? I think it was probably 2005, if I'm not mistaken. So I said that okay, let's do this. So I found hosting, right? Hosting business. Why is because if look at property, in order every property to be built, you need land. So I thought about digital as the future. So I said, okay, maybe I should just do hosting. So I reached out to this Singapore company and said, hey, you know what? Can I resell your servers? So they said, I mean, it's basically instead of taking all parts of land, you just buy pieces and sell it. So I remember the cost was pretty cheap. I think like 280 ringgit a year. Obviously, it's a very low margin, right? But I thought that's an opportunity for me to kind of move forward. Why? Because somebody who would ask for hosting would naturally ask me, Adrian, I need a domain to do an email. So I said, sure, no problem. I'm going to sell you a domain. And after it's got a domain and email, it's like, hey, you know what? I need a website. So I said, sure, I can build you a website. And after I build a website, then it's like, you know what? I need to do some SEO or search engine optimization. I say, yeah, I can do that. And then social media, online marketing, digital marketing, and then slowly, eventually started branding and all the other parts of it. So if I see, I actually started with something that can I scale? Can I add more layers to it? It's an easy entry, 280 ringgit a year, 55 ringgit a year for domain, but all the other parts eventually led us to websites and the whole. Like we were doing BMW retainers, we were doing large organizations, right? I think then that gives me enough, I would say, income.
Yeah.
And retainer was the way to go because project-based, you can win today and then lose tomorrow. But retainer was something that went on. So I think I remember in my third or fourth year, I bought over another company that did the same thing that I did. And then I had like, I remember I had a lot of servers that I was serving. So I think it was a very good base, which means I could never needed to worry about my month on month because those base is something that's recurring every year. And then I built other services on top of it and look for other businesses to invest. I think that's kind of how I started. So, and in fact, I'm still in that same trajectory where now we go into digital transformation, building teams, building products, mobile applications. So it's just that whole, from that really base, even until today, you still have your servers, which is AWS or Azure, but everything else it's still services. So that's basically where you start layering, right?
I think I like that because it means that I don't need 100,000 to start a business. I just need a little bit of money to have an idea and then scale it from there, right? We don't need to have millions of what VC money being poured in to really have a successful
So
business.
that's the interesting part. So
Yeah.
all my businesses are service business when I started, and I start with zero. I always take my customers' money to start the business. So it's always winning one client first, and then hiring one guy, and then winning 2 or 3 out there, and then grow. So I went on a month-to-month goal of what I wanted to get, and then work towards it and grow that. So I never, in my early days, I never really needed to. I didn't have the money to invest. I just sold an idea, get the money, and build the business from the recurring income.
Wow, that's so good. But how do you know that, okay, how do you know that I'm going to secure that customer? Because obviously when you build the business, perhaps there's a lot of investment of time and money. How do you know it's worth it? Or how do you even find the customer before you even have any social proof or even the final product? Like I say, there's no websites.
I guess, yeah. So I had maybe the gift of the gap. I could sell, and I did one thing that was what I did daily in terms of hustling was just that I just went have coffee every day. I just met somebody, have coffee, and listen to them, and they will always at some point come up with a problem that they are facing, and I always have a solution, and then eventually I'll try to monetize that solution. So that is something, and after that, by the third or fourth year, I didn't need to do any sales anymore. It was word of mouth, and people came to us to actually request for cost. I mean, request for quotations and all that. So I think in the initial days, your network is very important. So I spend a lot of time just talking, and sometimes out of nothing, I will give free connection, free advice, or whatever I could. I just give. Naturally, they will connect. They will always remember, I should talk to Adrian because he's got that solution, or maybe he knows somebody who can do something. So that's kind of how I got into the selling. Yeah,
Yeah, like some people say, your network is your net worth, right?
yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I think going back to talking about scaling your businesses, right? How do you know that a business is scalable? Because I mean, maybe for example, the hosting one is a bit more clear the trajectory. But I mean, for your other business, how do you know it was scalable? Considering you're starting from from zero, and probably the products you're starting with doesn't have that great margin, also.
I think the scale was. I think I didn't think of it from that perspective. I just think that what is my target? Like I remember I had my first initial sales target per year was like, let's say 1 million. I've done that. Okay, let's go 3 million. Let's go 5 million. Let's go 10 million. I want to go higher. And the question is, then I will ask myself, what does it take to get there? Is it bigger customers? Is it more resources? And so then I tried to break them down into small chunks and said, okay, I need to do this month divided by, I don't know how many number of days. This will get me there. So the scalability will actually came by the demand. So I went with the demand first, which means if I can sell it, close it, then I will achieve my number, and that's when I will then scale my resources to support it. So that's actually, I think I went on a demand generation perspective first, rather than scaling my process. So over the years, those who know me, they will know that I'm persistent, determined, but I'm not very organized, because everything changes from day to day. So today, this process might work for this size. Later down the road, might not be. So I think it's a lot of learning, depending on what size of business you're in. Yeah.
See, so you always look for demand first, then only decide on scaling your team later on when you don't have enough supply for it. Yeah, that's so good. And I think maybe let's talk then about investing in businesses, because you've also invested in quite a few businesses, right? How do you know that a business has true potential and is even worth investing money in?
So I've always looked at the business being invested not as a business, but always at the person. So who is running it? What is their potential? How is their attitude? Because at the end of the day, when you're investing in people, your outcome is, have they learned? Have they grown? That's more important than how much money I earn. So in that sense, if you have good people, you support them right, they have right attitude, naturally, and you can work with them, it would be a long-term, you would be long-term. So I've got partners who've been with me from first business, and then now in another business still rejoin me. It's because if you've got the right guys and you've invested in the right people, the business doesn't matter. It's just another, how do you call it, transaction. But the person that have grown and the network that they have and the attitude that they have towards their business, their work, I think that's actually a big sign. So I always imagine that if I'm investing, whether I win or lose, I'm investing in people.
So you talk a lot about investing in people, right? And finding the right people even to invest in. What kind of investment does that look like? And what are your, in a sense, returns on investment after you invest in these people?
I think obviously monetary depends on what the size of the business is. But I think it's really more of the relationship that I built with the person. When they first started to what they are today, I think if they become a better person, they are very effective. And we have 300 over alumni from our organization, and a lot of them are either still working with me or have engaged with me some way or another in some business, and you can see them grow. I think for me, the joy is to see that they are a much better person. They're not like when they first kind of started work, right? And they have a very good perspective and grasp of what their work is. That actually to me is a good investment, right? Which means it's right. Whether the business succeeded or not, that's secondary, right? Because at the end of the day, if the person has is successful themselves, then it's just a matter of having another business. So that's kind of how I see it. So I think people are one of the most important resources to invest in. It could be on a monthly basis. It could be buying them some equipment. It could be anything, right? So I look at it really, what is their need now? How can I make them? How can I scale for them? Or how can they improve their income? How are they going to improve their business? What would it take? How can I help? That's kind of how I look at it.
And I think when talking about investing in people, why is it so important to you to invest in people? Because I feel that the conventional out there is like every MNC out there is just maximize the bottom line. We can cut people and all these sort of things just to maximize profit. But I mean, you've run many successful businesses. Why is it that your framework of prioritizing people, one why does it work? I think, but secondly also, why do you do it this way?
I think the key thing is that the success of the organization actually really, really falls on people. Without people, the organization is nothing, right? So if you invest right with the right people, you will naturally get the success as an outcome, right? But if you invested in, let's say, platform or processes, but not people, the outcome may not necessarily be successful, right? Because at the end of the day, who's operating it? What are the values? So I feel no matter what, people still seems to be the core of any successful business. If you look at any business and you can look at a business and say, wow, that business is successful, actually it's because of the people in the business. Investing in people from a perspective, from a kingdom business perspective, I think is the most important because we are really here to build people, right? And really, when you also talk about what is the true success, what is the biblical success, and I think if you can see, even in the heart of Jesus, was basically to build people. It was not physical buildings. It's all about, if you see his whole journey, even with his 12 disciples, was really building people. And with this, obviously, over time, initially you won't see it as biblical perspective. But I think over the last few years, I've learned two key things. One is stewardship, and the other is building people, right? And if you build people, that's basically our life, our testimony to grow others. And stewardship is really what talents you've been given, whether it's talents, whether it's business, whether it's platform, whatever it is. That's actually where you are taking good care of it to enable others to also have it. So I guess that's really why we're here, right? It's really about the others.
Then I think going back to your businesses, right? How do you know it was a time to move on from your business? Because you've gone through so many businesses, right? How do you know it's the right time to move on, is to start a new thing?
Yeah, so I think some people say that I'm like can't sit still, but I think it's I initially I was quite attached to my business, but I think over the years with some exits, I've learned to see it almost like a utility, right? People don't really change, but the vehicle can. So imagine that you drive a car. So if the car is not really working, you send it to a garage, doesn't work, sell it off, right? But the people in the journey in the car with you is still going the same destination. So you will probably naturally change to a different car, but you're still going in the same direction. So I see business as really as that utility, right? As part of that, where you just, if it works, great. If it doesn't, change it. Right? So that's kind of how I look at it. And remember, is that as we're stewards, it's really temporary. While there are a lot of legacy business, which is great. I mean, those means the car is really a classic and it's going well. But there's a lot of times that actually that doesn't really happen, right? So that's why if we are not too attached to it, it just becomes a chapter. But the people, if you notice, over the last many years, they don't change. They're still on the same destination. We just move on a different utility.
Yeah. And you said earlier that you were a little bit emotionally attached in your previous business. How do you break that emotional attachment?
I think it took some time because we always think that we are the business, so there's this brand attached to it. But after a while, when you realize you've got a few, like which one do you like? When you introduce yourself, what do you say? Like which, and so it doesn't really then want to be defined by that anymore. And so then came to the most important question would be, what's your purpose? So then you would know how to kind of present yourself. It's like, for example, Adrian, what are you? Oh, I'm an adventurer. I'm here to build teams, build people, right? So that becomes my so-called business. Not so much of this company name or that company name. I think those things are here for a while, but your purpose doesn't change. So I think that's more important, is really what's the purpose.
Yeah. I think from speaking to you, I feel that you've got a very strong sense of purpose and you know exactly when to move on, exactly when to come into new business. How do you get to that level of, I know what my true purpose is, and or how do some people even find out what their purpose is?
I think this really takes, I guess it was obviously from crisis, you learn a lot and from many different experiences. But I think for me, it's really, I just came to a point, it's really, what do I really want? How much is enough, right? I mean, it's great to have a lot, but for me, one of my key purpose in life is experience. I want to be able to experience many things and I want to be able to learn. So these two is my purpose. And this too doesn't necessarily mean you become rich, but I could be rich in experiences. Like, okay, I've been like Mount Kilimanjaro, I've done diving, I've learned many, many different things, right? That's because this is really what my purpose and what I want to do. I want to be rich in experience. So the more experience I can gain, the richer I become. Not monetarily, right? But with this richness, then I also know I have enough wisdom. I'm also able to share, or at least maybe to lead people. So I think all of this makes are part of really making who you are. So to me, rich in experience is really one of my primary goals. So that at least when I go, I have learned and experienced a lot, and I've also been able to touch many lives. That's of course what I desire to do.
Yeah, so your purpose is to gain experiences and also touch lives. What do you think is that one decision in your life that you've made throughout all your experience that perhaps has made that biggest impact in your purpose?
Well, I think that's a very tough question. I think this is really down to one of my quiet time. I think until today I remember this because this is very important. It was really at my crossroads where I actually kind of asked, like, God, where should I go? What should I do? And then there was a little small voice that asked, what do you want? Of course, I don't think it's him, but it's probably my own self-thinking. But I then had a whole list of things that I wanted to do. Get a degree, get married, have kids, do a business, do whatever, all these things. And then I realized, oh, you know what? This must be done. I must do this. These are things that I want to achieve. So I started then compiling what are the things that I want to do and what are the risks of not doing. So that means what I cannot not do. And then say, okay, let's go and do that. Get those priorities done. So I think with that, it became a very good decision where I would then say, what risk if I don't venture? If I venture and fail, it's okay. At least I've learned it. So to me, I treat it like a cost, right? You pay for the cost, so you'll never lose because you've always been, if you look at it that way, right? And so with that sense, what I want to gain, and then the question is, who are the people I want to bring along with? Who are the people I want to journey with? And I think with this decision has kind of led across the entire, all my last, I guess, it's been a very long time since that decision was 20 years. And I think looking back, it's been a very enriching journey. Yeah, I've not achieved all yet, but it's enriching.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, definitely still plenty of time to achieve all these things, right? Yeah. And yeah, I think, we're on the Accomplished Impact podcast, right? So what do you think is the point in which a business is successful or in a sense has accomplished it?
I think we then need to go back to what is that biblical success, right? I think as a steward, you always want to be excellent, right? You want your company to be able to, okay, company is company, but the people that you're with, so that team, what impact do you want to be able to create? Firstly, in their family, then their community, and then what are you doing for your nation? So I think if we see it from that perspective, it is it's a team of people that you're bringing along on your journey. And of course, the company and what they do is really just the utility and transaction. Yeah. But the people is what they count, because really after 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, whichever, when they go home, is what happens there. Are they really living out the true success, right? Yeah. With their family? And then what about their community? What about their friends? What about their church? And what about the nation, right? So I think if we looked at it from a perspective of my company, is actually my team and who and my team is impacting. I think that is very, to me, one of the most important outcomes that you can get.
Yeah, I think that's so good because I think we need to stop seeing companies as just a faceless group of people coming together, making money and then going home and then living their lives. Right? I think there's a deeper sense of purpose and really to drive a success of a company, you need people that can work together and just be themselves with in the presence of other people, right? Yeah. And yeah, I think for perhaps people who are going into entrepreneurship, what is one advice you would give these people?
I think the first thing is, I don't know, be naive. Okay, I think that's very irresponsible of me. But I think really, if you want to go into entrepreneurship, probably you might want to think of it from a different perspective as you are doing a project. And this project, if whether it's a carpentry project, you obviously have costs. So if you look at it from a project, and then the question is, what can you learn from it? And then after that, what can we gain? And the other is, can we monetize it? So in that sense, if you look at a business or the entrepreneurship journey as really doing a project, it can be a fruitful project. But even if it fails, you don't have to worry because a project, you can always start a new project. Yeah. So that's where I think we got to kind of not be too hung up about, what if it fail? What if people look at me differently? Yeah. But it's a project. So it's okay. You can always end a project. You can build a cupboard today and then I'm going to do something else tomorrow. Wood works and then metal works. It could be anything. So I think if you have that perspective, I don't think you would be too worried about the result. And this project also gives you education, right? Because you are also learning. Yes, there's some cost, but if you look at it from that way, what have you walked away with? Wiser, you know how to manage finance better, or you know how to create demand, or you know how to lead people. These are all skills that you cannot just pick up, but only with the project that you learn. So you are honing your skills with every project.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah. I think a lot of people are very logical to say that, okay, I need to only build a business if it will be successful, but that's often not the case, right? But, people, there will be failures. I'm sure you failed many businesses.
Oh, yes,
right?
of course.
Yeah, maybe tell me about your business failures.
Well, I've lost a lot of money in doing the wrong thing. I've of course had partner issues, which means shareholders, right? And of course there's also been some not so good cases, which is not great. And then of course you also lose money, lose contracts, right? So I think overall, it is basically. I mean, I have so many I can't even explain, but sometimes the company just start losing the customers, right? And when you start losing customers, then what do? You can't pay your staff. So you can't just keep pouring in your own money and figure out what to do. So think of a new project, right? Get the guys who are in your team to go to do a new project. And I think that's kind of just how we went. So yes, I think in terms of dollars, I've probably lost a lot over the last 20 over years. But in terms of value of what I've learned, I think it's a lot more.
That's so good. So I think it's going back to your personality also, right? Like talking about how you go into businesses to get more money to get yourself out of the hole. The same thing also for businesses or perhaps even failing out there. Perhaps maybe the advice for them also is to do other projects to get themselves out of that hole. So.
That's actually not really. It's actually more sounds a bit like gambling, but no. But then again, no. It was because of that situation I was with. I was in. I just couldn't find any other alternative. So that's why I had to create a project to basically cover this fund, and then did more. Right. So I think then naturally you kind of redo that over again, and eventually there are no more holes to cover, and then you start to see that then you're positive. So I think it's just a natural eventuality, but I don't think everybody starts with a hole. I hope you always start with a bit of surplus and say, which project am I going to do today? What do I want to learn? What do I want to test and try? So that's when you kind of start going into exploring.
And for leaders who are perhaps dealing with uncertainty, they are not sure if they should go and explore these areas. What advice do you have for them to make bold decisions?
Sometimes decisions. I live pretty much a no regrets life. Whatever happened had happened. Yesterday's yesterday, but today can control tomorrow. So what I always I think is to make bold decisions. I guess really just be clear with your purpose, because when you have a very clear purpose, then everything else is just obstacles that you just need to go through. For example, if I climb, and so like climbing, you basically have every handhold and foothold. If you don't make a decision to move, you're where you are. Two things will happen. One, you go tired and you'll probably slip off. Number two, you don't have any new holes to hold because you're not moving up to see. So sometimes you just got to trust, know your purpose, that you got to finish this or you got to go somewhere and move forward. And so as long as you're moving forward, no matter how slow, it's still progress, right? But if you're not moving at all, then you're probably stagnant. So I think it's really making decisions have to be on a daily basis, every day. Take every decision, make it small, reprioritize, find the small ones, go forward. Even if you don't need to make big decisions, just make small decisions that you know you can control, and you will move forward. I think eventually you'll start to see a bigger picture. It's really like life lah. Every day, you can't stop every minute. It's going to happen anyway, right?
Yeah, decisions are inevitable. You just have to make them lah.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, as we end, what is perhaps one insight that people should take away from this conversation?
I think with all said, I think really first thing for me is I feel is never stop learning. Every project venture is an opportunity for a new skill, meet new people or build new teams. I think this is always a win.
So yeah, thank you so much, Adrian, for being on the show. Really, thank you for the insights and appreciate your stories.
Yeah, I hope to be of help. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to yet another episode of The Accomplished Podcast. We release episodes bi-weekly on Tuesdays at 6 a.m. If you haven't already, we encourage you to subscribe as we're on Spotify as well as YouTube. You can also follow us on our social media at accomplished.asia on Instagram and TikTok, where we post snippets of this podcast. If you want to find out more about the Accomplished community and how you can be a part of it, drop us a DM on our socials or email us at hello@accomplished.asia. We'll see you at the next one.